The moment I saw the girl, I knew I could have her. What would you do if this is what was going through a man's head while looking at your daughter, while you were not there? Even among developed countries, Japan is considered especially safe. You will often see small children going to school by themselves on trains, and playing unsupervised at parks in the afternoon. Foreigners are often shocked when they witness this, but for Japanese people that is the way it has always been, and how it will probably be for the foreseeable future. However, there were a few cases through the past several decades that made society question if Japan was actually safe enough to justify this norm. The story I will present to you today is one of those cases. On a hot summer day, a 4-year-old girl didn't come home. Even though the police and local community got involved looking for her, not a trace was found. After a few months had passed, a package is found on the doorstep of the missing girl's house. When the parents opened it up, it contained a set of bones belonging to their daughter. This is the story of the serial kidnappings by Miyazaki Tsutomu. On August 22, 1988, in the Saitama Prefecture of Japan, a 4-year-old girl, who we will refer to as Girl A, went missing. Girl A had left her house at 3:20 p.m., claiming she was going to visit her friend who lived nearby, but she never made it to her friend's house. 2 boys and women who lived in the neighborhood had seen the girl following a man towards a nearby river. When the police were called, they thoroughly searched along the river and connecting canals, but nothing was found. The police would classify the case as a kidnapping based on witness accounts, and continue searching the neighborhood, but the girl was not found, nor were there any other witness accounts. As a couple months passed with no progress, another girl would go missing in a nearby town, also in the Saitama Prefecture. On October 3rd, a 7-year-old girl, who we will refer to as Girl B, went missing. After school, she had come home to drop off her backpack, then went outside, presumably to meet up with some friends. The police would conduct a large-scale search for her within the day, but again nothing was found. The disappearances of Girl A and B had some similarities. They were both young girls. They disappeared within just a few kilometers of each other. They had somewhat similar appearances and hairstyles. They both went missing during the afternoon of a Monday. So the police were already suspecting the culprit was the same person at this point. But a couple more months would pass with no progress. On December 9th, a 4-year-old girl, who we will refer to as Girl C, went missing. She had been walking home with her friend and parted ways only 20 meters, or 60 feet from her house at around 4:30 p.m. A neighbor had witnessed the 2 girls as they separated, but Girl C never made it the short distance home. Yet again, the police would conduct a large, yet fruitless search. However, 4 days later, a man finds some children-sized clothing on the roadside of the town, and when police sweep the area, they find the body of Girl C, tied at both the wrists and ankles. The police now knew they were dealing with a murder, if not serial murder case. 3 girls had gone missing, each of them 2 months apart. As 2 more months passed since the death of Girl C, Girl A's parents come home one day to find a cardboard box sitting on their doorstep. Inside the box, there are a dozen or so fragments of what appear to be human bones, the largest of which is part of a jaw, with the teeth still attached. There were also a few photographs in the box of children-sized pieces of clothing, which to the parents' horror realized that it was the clothing their daughter was wearing on the day she disappeared. The police tried to match the teeth on the jawbone to Girl A's dental records, but they could not determine it to be a perfect match. So the media would report that Girl A's parents had received a box of human remains, which could not be confirmed to belong to Girl A. However, this inconclusive information would unintentionally cause the culprit to make his next move. The day after the press release, several newspaper companies, and the parents of Girl A would receive an envelope. In the envelope there was a picture of Girl A post-abduction, and a letter signed by Imada Yuko, which is a female name. Imada would claim she was the one who had kidnapped Girl A, and she had killed the girl by drowning her in a river. As for the motive for her actions, Imada would say, Because she couldn't bear children herself, she had a deep hatred towards families with children. But this letter didn't provide any additional evidence. It just sent another round of shockwaves through society. More months went by. For the first time, the culprit didn't make a move for more than 2 months. At this point, the police had no idea who was behind these crimes, and had the culprit stopped here, he probably would still be a free man to this day. But alas, his appetite was too strong to suppress. 4 months after the media received the letter from the woman calling herself Imada Yuko, on June 6, 1989, another 5-year-old girl, who we will call Girl D, would disappear, this time from the east side of Tokyo. 5 days later, her dismembered remains would be found from a public restroom in the same town Girl B went missing. This was the first time a child had been found dismembered in this manner. Usually murderers cut up adult bodies because they are too large to transport as a whole. The fact that a small girl was dismembered indicated just how abnormal this particular culprit was. Things would take another turn just 1 month later, during July of 1989. In a city in the west of Tokyo, a man approached 2 sisters and began taking pictures of the girls. The father, noticing this strange man interacting with his daughters, promptly apprehended the man and handed him over to the police. As the police searched the man's car, they found bloodstains in the trunk, and upon further investigation, they found the blood to belong to Girl D. He was immediately arrested as a prime suspect of the series of kidnappings and murders, and although he initially denied the accusations, it didn't take long until he confessed to the crimes under interrogation. It didn't take long for word to get out that the culprit behind the missing girls had been caught. His name was Miyazaki Tsutomu, 26 years old, and from his appearance and timid demeanor described by the police, the media would label him as an otaku. In today's world, the word otaku doesn't carry too much of a negative nuance, but in Japan in the 80s and 90s, this word carried a lot of stigma, and this case was one of the primary reasons behind why otaku had a bad image. Miyazaki would confess to kidnapping the girls, killing them, and then performing vile acts with their bodies. He even kept many video recordings of these vile acts. As for his motives, these are some actual recordings from his interrogations.
そこに置いてる間は自分の店になるから。だから相手にされない女性。
As for the reason why he sent the letter to the media using a fake female name, Miyazaki admitted it was to throw off the police. Same goes for the reason he did most of the kidnappings in Saitama, even though he lives in Tokyo. Although his crime may somewhat seem well planned, the police officer who questioned him during investigation got the impression that Miyazaki was very adolescent, and didn't seem like the type that would be able to carry out a serial murder. He also appeared to be somewhat detached from reality, as can be seen from his answer when asked why he sent the bones of Girl A to her parents.
どこの子供もね、親の悲しんでる顔をお祭り騒ぎのようにかわいそうっていうか、時の頃見てたんですよ。
Miyazaki also underwent an extensive mental evaluation, which ultimately determined he was capable of taking responsibility for his actions, and on April 14, 1997, was sentenced to death. Even when receiving this sentence, Miyazaki didn't seem to fully grasp the situation. His last words during the trial were, "I don't fully comprehend what I have done, and I want to go home." He never said a word of shame or apology towards the parents of the children he kidnapped. 20 years since the first incident, on 2008, Miyazaki was executed at the age of 45. This case fundamentally transformed how Japanese society perceived child safety. Before this incident, it was relatively common for children to play outside unsupervised or walk to school alone without much concern. After the case, parents became significantly more vigilant, and community-based child protection initiatives emerged across the country. Schools began emphasizing stranger danger education, teaching children not to follow unfamiliar adults. Society seriously questioned if the widely held belief that Japan was an inherently safe country, where such precautions were unnecessary, was indeed true. The extensive media coverage of Miyazaki's love of anime and video games created a lasting stigma against otaku culture. The term otaku, which had been relatively neutral, became associated with social deviance and potential danger. This stereotype persisted for decades and contributed to the marginalization of people with interests in anime, manga, and video games. The case also sparked heated debates about whether violent media content could trigger criminal behavior. Calls for stricter regulation of horror videos, certain anime, and similar media grew louder, setting a precedent for ongoing tensions between free expression advocates and those seeking content restrictions. These discussions continue to resurface whenever violent crimes occur in Japan, with the Miyazaki case often cited as a reference point. What do you think of the case? How far should society go to try and prevent these rare but impactful cases? Let me know in the comments below. A big thank you to Korbachu, Miknis, and my other Patreons for supporting this channel. As always, thank you for watching until the end. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video. I'll see you next time.